Starbucks was once more than just a coffee chain. It was a global icon, a beacon of American culture in every corner of the world. It stood as a symbol of freedom, innovation, and a lifestyle that seemed to embody the very essence of what America once represented. You'd walk into a Starbucks in Tokyo or Buenos Aires, and you'd instantly recognize that Americano, that perfect cup of coffee, as a comforting reminder of U.S. influence. But today, that Americano in Italy is now the Freedom Brew. In France, it's simply black water. No joke. What was once an emblem of American soft power has turned into something else entirely. This isn't just a clever rebranding. It's a backlash, a deep shift that signals something much more profound. What's happening isn't just about renaming drinks. It's about dismantling the very symbols of American influence. The world is no longer just rethinking American products. It's rethinking everything that America once symbolized: freedom, prosperity, and above all, the unbeatable promise of quality. But now even those values are up for debate. In Milan, a popular cafe went so far as to stop calling its espresso drink an Americano altogether. Instead, it became Aquasura, black water. Luca Ferrara, the co-owner, explained that the goal wasn't just to create a new drink. It was about severing the connection to America itself. "It's not just coffee, it's about what we associate with it," Ferrara told Corriere della Sera. "We no longer want to associate taste with America." And this isn't an isolated incident. Across the world, in Seoul, in Bangkok, in Paris, American-branded drinks, food, and fast food chains are being stripped of their American identities. From menu items to entire brands, it's clear that something larger is happening. This is more than a cultural shift. It's a growing resistance to U.S. influence, especially among the younger generation. According to the 2024 Pew Global Attitudes Survey, the favorability ratings for the U.S. among young adults in G20 countries have plummeted to just 43%, down from 62% a decade earlier. The world's youth are disillusioned. Where America once led the way, now there's a growing sense of skepticism and even disdain. As American soft power diminishes, even something as seemingly innocent as coffee is being seen as a battleground over how the world views the United States. But this isn't just a matter of changing perceptions, it's being reflected in hard data too. U.S. exports of consumer goods to Canada fell by 11.4% in 2024, and to the EU they dropped by 12.6%. But it's not just about numbers, it's happening on the shelves too. In Berlin, the German retailer Railway slashed shelf space for American products like Kellogg's and Kraft Heinz by 40%, instead favoring local brands. Why? Because U.S. goods are no longer seen as a symbol of stability. They're associated with unpredictability, with supply chain issues, with an American political system that's become a wild card for international business. And then there's the trade wars. Donald Trump's tariffs were sold to the public as a way to protect American workers, but in reality, they have left deep, lasting fractures in global trade relations. In 2025, when the U.S. reintroduced tariffs on aluminum and steel imports from the EU, it was more than a policy shift. It was a sign of a deeper, more profound disconnect. Germany's Minister for Economic Affairs, Robert Habeck, called it an outdated tool that harmed Western unity. In retaliation, the European Union revived tariffs on iconic American brands like Harley-Davidson and Levi's. And the numbers are telling. U.S. exports to the EU in sectors affected by the tariffs dropped by a staggering $6.4 billion in the first quarter of 2025, compared to the same quarter in 2024. This isn't just a trade dispute. It's the unraveling of a long-standing economic order, where the U.S. was once at the center. But it doesn't stop there. The world is now witnessing a new form of resistance. In 2024, the hashtag Boycott USA trended in over 18 countries, not in response to sanctions, but as part of a grassroots uprising against American dominance. In South Africa, labor unions called for the government to cancel defense contracts with U.S. firms after Washington criticized Pretoria's stance on the Ukraine conflict. In India, U.S. fast food chains saw foot traffic drop by 22% as nationalist campaigns gained traction on social media, urging citizens to avoid foreign brands. In Turkey, unions even pushed consumers to stop using U.S. apps in retaliation for the U.S.'s military support to Greece. This isn't some isolated, coordinated protest. It's a decentralized, organic response to a growing perception that America is overreaching, and it's happening on a scale that's too big to ignore. But the real concern is that this backlash is becoming sticky. Once a consumer base turns against a brand or a product, it's very difficult for those old U.S. players to regain their market share. Alternative platforms, brands, and products are now deeply embedded in the global consumer landscape. Take Tesla, for example. The electric vehicle giant, once hailed as a symbol of American innovation, is now in free fall. Its global market share has plunged from 14% in 2022 to just 8.1% in early 2025. In China, the world's largest EV market, Tesla sales have dropped by 26% year over year. And it's not just about market forces. Chinese state-run media routinely frame Tesla as a proxy for American influence, casting it as a tool of Western imperialism. Even in Germany, labor unions have protested the working conditions at Tesla's Berlin Gigafactory, amplifying concerns about American-style exploitation. But Tesla's decline isn't just about politics or policy, it's about perception. In markets like Australia and Norway, where Tesla was once seen as an aspirational brand, consumer satisfaction is now plummeting. Critics point to concerns about surveillance and security risks related to Tesla's software, adding another layer of distrust. In a world increasingly hostile to American brands, even innovation can't shield you from the fallout. And this sentiment is spreading across the globe. In Brazil, Mercado Libre, one of the largest e-commerce platforms, has removed over 800 American products from its top search rankings in favor of local and Chinese alternatives. In India, Meesho's AI-driven algorithm has deprioritized U.S. consumer electronics, citing logistical instability and political pressure. This isn't just about ideology, it's about practicality. U.S. products are now seen as volatile, unpredictable, and subject to tariffs and regulatory scrutiny. Even the algorithms that power e-commerce are starting to favor alternatives to American goods. The implications of these changes are massive. U.S. companies are quietly being pushed out of key markets, and it's no longer just a matter of consumer preference. It's a matter of algorithmic bias. When a brand disappears from a search result or loses visibility on a shelf, the consumer doesn't even notice. They just stop seeing it. This is the new reality. U.S. products are becoming invisible, and that invisibility could lead to something far more dangerous. Coca-Cola, long the face of American soft power, has quietly removed "Made in the USA" labels from products sold in several African markets, after a sharp 12% drop in sales in Nigeria and Kenya. McDonald's, too, has rebranded 47 franchises in the Middle East, where backlash against American companies has led to a 37% decline in regional revenue. These rebranding efforts are attempts to distance American brands from the geopolitical tensions that are increasingly tied to them. But the problem is deeper than just rebranding. According to Edelman's 2025 Trust Barometer, global trust in American brands has fallen to a historic low of 41%, the lowest since 2002. Trust, once broken, isn't easily mended with a new logo or a fresh tagline. Consumers are no longer reacting to logos. They're reacting to the very national behavior embedded in the supply chains that make these products possible. What's happening now is not a fleeting protest. It's an erosion, a quiet, steady dismantling of U.S. consumer dominance. Global consumer activism has evolved from public protests to the more subtle art of preference shaping. And the numbers don't lie. In Southeast Asia, for example, Nielsen tracked a 16% drop in sales of American packaged goods in 2025, compared to the year before. In France, Carrefour, one of the largest retailers in Europe, replaced 120 U.S. products with domestic or EU-sourced alternatives after receiving customer petitions demanding it. In Colombia, a viral TikTok campaign in 2025 urged consumers to avoid American baby products, after reports leaked of pressure from Washington on local health regulations. And it worked. Johnson & Johnson's baby care segment dropped by 19% in the region, quarter over quarter. This isn't just a boycott. It's an erosion of trust that spreads through every layer of consumer culture. The consequences aren't just cultural, they're financial. As more countries, retailers, and consumers move away from U.S. products, the U.S. dollar itself is starting to face new pressures. China and Saudi Arabia are already settling oil deals in yuan. BRICS nations are testing alternative payment systems. And just last month, Brazil's central bank halved its U.S. dollar reserves to the lowest point since 2008. This is more than trade friction. It's tectonic, and the fault lines are beginning to show. If the world begins to stop buying American, will it eventually stop buying America altogether? That's not just a trade dispute. That's the beginning of something much larger. When global loyalty shifts, it doesn't just affect the economy. It undermines the very foundation of American power. If a collapse can begin with jeans and ketchup, imagine what could happen if the dollar becomes the next casualty in this quiet, slow-moving crisis. What happens when consumer rejection turns into financial rejection? What happens when governments, retailers, and consumers stop buying U.S. products and start turning away from the U.S. dollar? If the world's markets begin to phase out the U.S. dollar, it would signal the beginning of a massive shift in global power. That's no longer just a trade issue, it's a tectonic shift. And it's already happening. This is the new reality. The question is no longer if America's global dominance will crumble, it's when and how far the consequences will reach. The shift is underway, and it's only going to get harder to stop.